but it was a mixture of people in the business and not kind of thing. It might have
Mhm.
been a veterans thing. And it was a big banquet hall. There was maybe 400 people there. And I'm sitting at my table and I look across the room and I see Tommy walking across the room. And I, oh my God, it's Tommy. I hadn't seen him in a while. I get up, I walk over there and I stop him. Now he's with someone else, but my focus is on Tom. I
Right.
said, Tommy, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. I'm going through this whole thing like, hey, what have you been up to? Da, 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 da. He's looking at me, but he's got this kind of half grin on his face, like, like, and I'm like, what's going on? So I stopped talking. He goes, Danny, I'd like you to meet my friend, Clint Eastwood.
No shit.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I look and it's Clint Eastwood. Now he's looking at
Cool.
me and he's got a grin on his face because he knows that he just shocked the crap out of me. Hi, how are you? I said, oh, I'm a big fan, Mr. Eastwood,
I'll blow your head clean off.
Exactly. So that was very cool and also a big shock.
So before we get to the backstory on how you got into the Hollywood bubble, as I like to call it,
Yeah.
your book Long Branch, which I'm halfway through, I'm
Oh,
listening to the audio version,
oh,
and Joe does a great job. I mean,
yeah, he's
his
wonderful.
voice is very, very good. Anyway, I'm at the point of, well, I don't want to give the where I'm at, but anyway, but in a nutshell, what's the book about for people that aren't aware of it?
Well, the main character is a man named Mason Powell, and Mason is an actor, successful actor. I mean, he had a very successful television show for 10, 12 years on a major network, and he played a sheriff in an old west town. When that show ended, as so often happens in Hollywood, people get a bit typecast. So he kind of finds it hard to transition into another series or film work or much of anything really. So he's sort of, and he's done pretty well financially, in that long run.
Hmm.
And then he decides, well, the best way to make money is to do these autograph signings, which are very lucrative for a lot of people. So that's kind of how he makes an extra buck doing that for a few years. Then COVID hits and all of that stops for 2 years, like everything else. Then he's got, then COVID starts to subside in 2022. So he goes back out on what he calls the circuit, these autograph signing events, but it's just not the same. People are hesitant to be in crowds, they limit capacity, like all those things that we remember were going on in 2022. So he's not making very much money. He finds out through no fault of his own that his accountant has basically bankrupted him. And for people who read the book or listen to it, you'll understand what happens. But in a nutshell, he goes bankrupt. So now he has nothing. He has no income. All of his residuals are being siphoned off to pay debt. So it occurs to him that he still owns his mother's house, who's passed away a few years ago, back in his hometown of Long Branch, Georgia. So he comes up with this plan that if he goes back to Long Branch, slaps a new coat of paint on this house, he can sell it and come back to LA and kind of, have some money to sustain himself and hopefully reboot his career. Once he gets to Long Branch, he reconnects with some old friends from high school. He sort of finds out that a crime has been committed 20 years ago in this town and that he may have some connection to the crime itself. And now he's obsessed with figuring out what happened. Does he really have a connection or not before he can go back to LA with a clean conscience?
Boom.
Yeah. And
I'm at the reunion part, just FYI, as far
oh,
as
okay.
yeah.
It's just a fun twist, lots of twists and turns. I mean, the one thing I've been so flattered about is the feedback that I'm getting in the reviews. Everyone says they just never knew what was happening. The twists and turns, every time they thought they knew, okay, this is where this is going. The next chapter, nope, that's not where it's going.
No, I love it. I
So
mean, I'm hooked, and like and I usually don't do the audio gig, but because of work and just stuff in general, I said, let me try this audio thing.
yeah,
And Joe, like I said, Joe, speaking of Joe,
yeah,
we're getting to that part. but you're from Kansas City, correct?
I am
And you
very
moved
proud.
to LA.
Hmm.
You're working construction. You own the business. Correct me if I'm
Did.
wrong.
Yeah.
Um, oh, actually, let me back up a second. Is there anything in the book that is biographical, sort of like
Well,
that happened to you or not happened to you, or?
yes and no. I mean, they say write
Mhm.
what you know, right? So
Mhm.
Mason, there's a dash of me in Mason for sure. My impatience, my need to know. Um, but one thing that did happen to me that you're reading about right now, I went back to Kansas City. I go back all the time. I have family there. I go back to see a football game,
Chiefs fan.
Chiefs fan, or get some really good barbecue. Those are my things I do when I go to KC.
Cool.
But I a few years ago, my wife and I went back and I reconnected with two of my closest friends in grade school and junior high school. And I had not seen them in decades, right? Maybe a little chat on social media, but nothing, no phone calls, really nothing, right? And I just got it into my head like, I want to see these guys. I want to talk to them. And do I have the same memories of my childhood that they do?
Mhm.
That whole thing. So we go to Kansas City. We set up, we're going to have dinner together. We're going to bring our wives. We're going to all get together. And we're sitting in this little restaurant in KC called the Peanut, which is off the Country Club Plaza. And I'm waiting and I'm early and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're not going to show. This is a joke on Dan. Like I was a jerk in grade school. Like, your imagination runs wild.
Right.
But and I was so kind of nervous and trepidatious about seeing them again, just because I have these very fond memories of my childhood, and I just didn't want them shattered. Um, but then they showed up and they sat down, and within 2 minutes, it was like we had never been apart. It was so fun. I had such a great time, and that sort of I think you've already read a bit of that where
Mhm.
Mason reconnects with some guys and initially he's not going to do it and then all of a sudden he finds like not only did he have a great time but he's going to do it again. He's going to see these guys again before he leaves town.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's amazing. Not to go off on this, but I'm from Pittsburgh originally. I'm just
yeah,
outside of Philly now.
yeah,
Steeler fan, by the way. Anyway,
yeah.
um, I went back in June
Hmm.
to see. They called. I just wanted to see a couple guys, but one of my friends, long story short, got a bunch of people together without me knowing. And
Oh
I'm talking 30 years since I've seen
yeah.
grade school, actually, since I've seen some of these people, and it was like, wow, it was amazing. I mean, I just loved it. It was great. So
And
anyway,
everybody looks old, right?
oh, it's not good. It sucks getting old. What are you gonna
It's
do?
like, hey, you guys got old, and they're like, yeah, you too. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so.
The sad part, not everyone was there, if you know what I'm saying. So it was like,
No, I know.
very grateful for that situation. Anyway, you're in LA, you're doing construction,
Yeah,
and you meet Joe Mantegna.
I do.
Tell us how that happened.
Well, I had a fairly successful, mostly roofing contractor at that point. Um, I got in a call from my office from this woman named Arlene, and she said, "Well, we have a problem. Would you come by and have a look?" Sure, of course, that's what we do. So I go and I have a look, and I go to this house. Now Joe's not there, and I still don't know this is his house,
Okay.
but it's a big house. It's a nice house,
Mhm.
and I had done work for people in the show business world before. So when I walked around this house, assessing the issue that she wanted
Cool.
me to look at, I thought, man, this guy, whoever this is, they're in show business. It just the decor and the vibe. It was like this is a creative person's home.
Right.
So then I see a picture on the wall of Joe Mantegna, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's who this house is. And he wasn't there. He was working in Canada, if I remember correctly. This is 1999, probably.
Okay.
And
How
so
long were
what?
you in LA? I mean, like when you went
I moved
to,
to LA in 1984.
okay, so it was a stretch of time before
So
you,
I've been here, for a good 15 years.
okay.
So I I went back to do the work, and he was there. And then he had just finished the film for HBO, The Rat Pack, where he played Dean Martin. And as we were
Dino.
saying, like I worked with Pileggi on his Dean Martin script, so of course I'm a massive fan of Frank Dean and Sammy. So I had to confess, like, you did the best job of anybody I've ever seen do Dean Martin. Da 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 da.
Hmm.
And I think, I mean, I was probably my early to mid 30s then, and I think he was probably surprised and maybe even a little impressed that a guy my age is a fan of that music and those guys, you know. So
Mhm.
I told him my connection with Pileggi and all of that, and he thought that was very cool. Turned out he told me, he goes, you know, because I even had a little website at the time about Rat Pack, you know, enthusiasts. Turns out he actually had looked at my website when he was researching playing Dean Martin. So we kind of knew each other before we knew each other, you know.
Wow.
But we became friends kind of based on that, and also he had other properties, and so over the next couple of years, I did work for him on different properties, and then I decided at one point that I wanted to sell my business. I wasn't really happy doing it. I wanted to just take a leap of faith and see what I could, you know, get into. What else could I do besides this? You know,
Now, sorry for interrupting, but did you go to LA to do roofing? Or, I mean,
I went here to. I
why did you
came
move to LA initially?
well to get away from snow. That was the main reason. Well, but I
I
had a
hear you.
job offer from a friend of mine who had a construction company out here.
Okay.
So that's what
Got it.
gave me the
Okay.
confidence. I'll never forget. I moved out here with like $2,400,
Mm.
and I think about it now, and I think I wouldn't move across the street with $2,400. You know,
Yeah, that's mhm.
but LA was pretty cool still back then. So
Sure.
anyway, I decided to sell my business. I had to stay on a year for the new owner to transition, and about a month before that year was up. And Joe knew I was doing this, but we never talked in depth about it. He just kind of knew that I was selling my company. He said, "So you're done in a month?" Yeah. And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you going to do in a month?" I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Something will come up. He said, "Well, as it happens, I just got this series on CBS called First Monday with Jim Garner and Charles Durning. I'm going to play Supreme Court judge.
Wow.
They're going to give me an office. I want to start a production company. Do you want to come work for me?" And I thought long and hard about it for about a half a second and said, "Sure." You know,
So
I
you
didn't
had
even
no
ask.
aspirations of acting, writing, or anything when you moved there?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Now, I will say a couple of years before I met Joe, I had read Sammy Davis Jr.'s autobiography, and I was so impressed with this man's life and what he had gone through and the
Mm.
things that he had overcome. I thought, oh, this should be a movie. So there wasn't a movie, so I thought, well, maybe I could write a movie, you know. So I bought a book on screenwriting by Sid Field. I bought some software, and I sat down and I just adapted this book into a screenplay. A few friends of mine read it. Hey, this is pretty good, but you know, I have no connection to Hollywood, so I put it in a drawer, and that was it.
Mm.
After about 3 years of working for Joe, I got the nerve to show him this script, and I could see that look in his face of,
Another
okay, so
person.
you used to do construction. Now you're my assistant. Oh, now you're a screenwriter. Sure, kid. You know, but you know, Joe being one of a true mensch, one of the nicest guys around, he did read it, and he got back to me a few weeks later, and he said, you know, I read your script, and it's actually good. You know, is writing something you want to do, which is a big turning point in my life because I'd never asked myself that. Nobody else had ever asked me that. You know,
No formal training or
no, I
anything?
didn't go to college. I didn't do anything. I was a construction guy. You know, and he said, "No, you have a talent. You should let's you know." And I said, "Yes, I do. I like that process of creating."
Cool.
So he reread the script, and this time he made marks in red, like fix this, change that, do this, do that. So I did all of that, and then he said, "Well, now let's try to see if we can get this going somewhere." Well, the naive person I was, I didn't know you were supposed to buy the rights to a book before you adapt it to a screenplay.
Okay.
So he said, "Do you have the rights to the book?" And I said, "No, you need that?" You know, and he said, "Yeah, you do." So we called to try to get the rights. Somebody else had already bought them, so we couldn't do it. And nothing still has happened with that idea. I wish somebody would do it because Sammy's story is so amazing; it should be told.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So
but
did you the writing process?
mhm.
I mean, well, you have written for Criminal Minds, correct?
Yes, a couple of episodes. Yeah.
Now, what's the process for that? A screenplay, you sit down, you write it, you're alone, you know, like,
Right.
You show people, they chop it up and everything.
Sure.
What's the process for writing on TV for people that might be thinking about doing it? The reality of it.
Yeah, well, a show like Criminal Minds, they have a staff of writers. Well, they did back then. It's changed a little bit now,
Hmm.
partially because they've gone from broadcast TV to now they're on streaming on Paramount Plus.
Paramount, I know I don't have it. I'm so annoyed.
But in back when I was working on the show, they had some staff writers, and they would do, I think it was I want to say 23 episodes in a season. So each writer would do, I think, I want to say 3 episodes in a season, and then they would always have a couple of guest writers come in. And so the process is that you come in with an idea, you pitch the idea to the showrunner. If they like it, great. If they don't, they say, well, in my case, Ed Bernero, who was the showrunner at the time, who also created like Third Watch and a few other shows like that,
Mm.
he he didn't like he didn't like my pitch necessarily. So he said, no, 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 let's do this. Can you write an episode about blah? I said, sure, that's what you want. So
Mhm.
you basically come up with an outline, then you meet with all the writers at one time, and you sort of on a big whiteboard, you kind of write out the beats of your story. They put in their 2 cents, they interject what they think, they give you ideas. It's a real group sort of effort, and all the way through the process, when you write your first draft and your second draft and then your final draft, every writer in that room has read it and put in their 2 cents. And I think mostly it's to keep the vibe of the show consistent. You don't want to do something that's so incongruent with the way the show's been written for so many years, especially a show like that.
How long are we talking? I mean, like a week
Weeks.
or
No, no,
or,
no,
or
weeks.
no? It's not structured to like we got to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, boom, like the Saturday Night Live, boom, 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 and it
No,
pops out or a sitcom or something.
no, as I recall, like I think I worked on mine almost a month before it was actually ready for production. And the process of filming a big network show like that, it's pretty involved. People always say, how many days does it take to film one episode? Well, it takes 8 days to film it, but there's 6 weeks of prep leading up to that. You're scouting locations, you're finishing the script, you're doing all this stuff. And then when you're done filming, then it's editing and all of that goes, that's another 2 weeks maybe. So the best way I can equate it is by saying you're basically making a 1 hour movie,
Mm.
because it's the same exact process. You're making a 1 hour movie 23 times in a span of 10 months.
Mm. Now,
So
you're the producer part of it is obviously getting people together and get the true. Were you writing and doing that also?
not I've only written for Criminal Minds. I haven't
Okay.
produced anything for them. I produced other things,
Okay.
mostly documentaries,
Okay.
and then a couple of few unscripted shows. But yeah, I mean, a producer is sort of the captain of the ship. He kind of has the vision and tries to get all the. Funny enough, he's much like a contractor. You say, I'm going to build this room addition for you, and then you call a great electrician, you call a great framer, a great roofer, a great plumber, etc. It's the
Hmm.
same thing in television and movies. You want to make this show, so you call a great camera operator and a great sound guy and a great director of photography and a good and most importantly a great caterer,
Gotta
and you
eat.
and you do
Gotta
your
eat.
thing. Yeah.
Cool. Now, what are some of the? I mean, you meet Joe Mantegna, and you start doing these things.
Yeah.
I don't know what the time frame is as far as all of it, but what are some of the? It sounds great, but some of the pitfalls. Was it always rosy? I mean, I'm assuming there were some
No.
pitfalls that you have to be
Yeah.
aware of.
You I mean, funny enough, the first day I worked for him I almost quit because yeah. So I get to Sunset Gower Studios where they were filming this show, and it was a great show. It only lasted 13 episodes. I think it had to do because we started filming it right after 9/11.
Mm,
So there was so much focus on the world, that people were not really in the mood for being entertained.
right. Mm,
So I get to the lot, and it's a very old historic lot. They used to film Three Stooges shorts there, that kind of thing.
mm,
And it is everything that that you see in TV shows or movies about a backlot. There's sound stages, there's people wheeling racks of costumes by, there's people in funny costumes, there's trailers, all of that, you know.
Cool.
And I'm a kid from Missouri, and I'm like looking around with my eyes as big as saucers, thinking like, what is all this? So I find Joe's trailer, and I go inside and I say, "Hey, I'm here, day one. What do you want me to do for you?" "Oh, I'm glad you're here." He goes, I take this list. I'm having a screening of a film I directed. I want you to call these people on the list and invite them to the screening. Well, that sounds simple enough. So I get the list. I go back to my office there on the lot. I start to look at the list, and it's, oh, Andy Garcia, Billy Crystal, Sid Caesar, Ann Miller. I mean, like,
Wow. Inside
I I
numbers. Yeah.
flipped. I freaked out because I thought, because, for all you kids out there, back in those days, you had a phone in your house that was connected to your house. That's what I was calling. I wasn't calling their agent or publicist or even a cell phone. I was calling their home telephone number. So when I called
Wow.
Billy Crystal, Billy answered the phone. "Hello, Mr. Crystal. I'm so scared of you." And I had no reason to. They were all extremely nice people, and some of them have become friends of mine now over this last 23 years. But you feel it's that thing, imposter syndrome, where all of a sudden you're somewhere and you think, I don't belong here.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking to myself, I got to tell Joe today that this was all a big mistake, and I'm sorry for the trouble. But when I was a kid, I'll never forget my dad imparting a little bit of wisdom on me, which he would do from time to time, and that was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I thought to myself, let me just finish this week. It's a Monday. I'll finish the week, see how it goes. Then over that weekend, I'll make a decision. Do I want to stay or not? Well, by Friday, I was like, I was born to do this. I thought, this is my world.
Right.
I
You get used to
just
it. Yeah.
loved every second of it, and I have ever since.
That's cool. That's great. It's a great story. I mean, you have met some, obviously, are you, where are you right now?
I live in
You,
Burbank.
okay. Um, you come across Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
Sebastian Maniscalco, Jerry
Mhm.
Lewis, Chef Ramsay, Travis Kelsey, etc. You
Yeah.
meet these people. Has your perception changed prior to going to LA, about celebrities? And now you meet these celebrities and say, I mean, what has your perception changed? Some people are like, "Ugh, celebrities, they're selfish, they're this, they're that, or
Yeah.
whatever." Just what's your overall feeling prior to and then after meeting people?
Well, prior, I think, like most people, you hold these people that you've seen on television or in film or on the sports field, you hold them up like they're gods, because of what they do.
Mm.
And I would say the biggest thing that's changed for me is that you realize they're just people. They're just doing a job. It just happens to be a
A
high
cool one.
profile job, and a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has its downtime and its pitfalls and its, anguish like every other job. It's just different.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's got to be great. Now, in your opinion,
Yeah.
you came into the Hollywood scene, so to speak, unexpectedly. But
Yeah.
people that are actually, I'm going to move to LA. First of all, do you think actors, let's just use actors in general, should move to LA? Do they
You
have
know,
to move
these
to LA?
No, I don't think so these days. I mean, there's so much production going on in places like Atlanta and New Orleans, and now even places like Chicago, certainly New Mexico, where all Breaking Bad started that when they started filming there. There's production happening all over there, and now it's all over the world.
True.
Places like Hungary and Czechoslovakia are booming with production. So, I mean, I guess New York or LA are the places that you maybe need to be at
To
some
network.
point, or maybe initially to establish yourself and get an agent and all that kind of stuff. But I think you can. I mean, a lot of my friends who are actors, like Gary Sinise, he moved to Tennessee. He lives in Tennessee now.
Really?
Nick Searcy from Justified lives in Tennessee. A lot of people have just moved to where they want to be,
Hmm.
because filming nowadays, it could be anywhere. So why not live where you want to be and jump on a plane and go somewhere for 6 weeks and come home?
So it's a different animal nowadays. You mentioned Gary Sinise. You're involved with homeless veteran issues, correct?
Well, Gary is very, yeah, Gary,
I
the
know
Gary
he's really into it.
Sinise,
Yeah.
yeah, the Gary Sinise Foundation. I've known Gary for, gee, at least almost 20 years now. He's a very, very close friend of Joe Mantegna. He's known Joe since the 70s, 60s, I would say. They're
Mm,
both from Chicago. Um, and Gary, some years back started the Gary Sinise Foundation, asked Joe to be an ambassador for his foundation, which he is. And I just do whatever I can to help them both. He does some amazing stuff, builds homes for homeless veterans
mhm.
or injured veterans, um, families who've lost somebody in conflict. He'll take the kids and the widow, take them all to Disneyland,
Wow.
and show them a good time for a day. It's impressive what he does.
Yes, it
Really,
is.
he always say he's the new Bob Hope. You know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Now, tell us about. I've seen this at least one episode. Hollywood Weapons.
Oh, Hollywood Weapons was created by myself and a man named Tim Kremen for the Outdoor Channel, which is an outdoor lifestyle sort of channel. They wanted to do a show. Their channel sort of caters to hunters, fishermen,
Mhm.
people who like to camp, outdoor stuff. So they wanted us. Tim and I were talking about a show idea, and I said, wouldn't it be interesting to sort of test Hollywood, put Hollywood to the test? Because I see movies
I think it's a
and
great idea.
where I see a weapon used and I think, I don't know if that would work like that. So it was sort of a Mythbusters ish type of show where we would take a specific scene from a movie or a TV show where a weapon is used in a way that seems unbelievable or doubtful, and we test it in the real world with a real gun, real ammunition under as close conditions we can get.
Right.
So, we did almost 50 episodes of that show. It was really a fun show.
Yeah. Now, we can still watch that
Yeah,
on.
it's still on Outdoor Channel, and I think they're now, it might even probably be on some streaming services like Amazon. You'd have to search around for it. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many
I
channels.
know
Just
there's
so
too
many
many.
channels. It's ridiculous. But like I was saying, one we don't have is the Paramount Plus. But what are you gonna do? We'll work
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Um, what's the best way to access your book? I mean, everyone, immediate thought is, oh, Amazon. But people want to get the book.
Yeah,
What's the best way?
it's kind of available everywhere. You can get, if you want an e-version, like a Kindle style version. I mean, you can get it on iBooks or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Kobo is another one that's very popular.
Hmm.
If you want a printed version, you can get that on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And then the audio version is on Audible. So anybody that has Audibles,
That's
Amazon
what.
again,
Yeah.
Amazon, Barnes and
That's what.
Noble,
Yeah,
all those
that's what
kinds
I'm
of
actually
services,
listening
you
to it
can.
on. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to write it? I mean, I'm talking about from the first thought.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I want to write this. But why did you want to write it? And how long did it take? I'm talking from the first thought to the actual printing, and here it is.
Well, it's how they say history repeats itself. So in 2022, again, we're kind of mid COVID starting to come back.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the Outdoor Channel had asked me to pitch them some ideas for a scripted drama, which they had never done. So Joe and I both came up with a couple ideas, and then we had another idea from someone else, and we said, "Here's three ideas that we think any one of them could work for you."
Okay.
So they chose one, and we sort of developed it a bit with them, and then they realized it was too big of a leap for them to go from what they were doing to a 1 hour scripted drama, which is very expensive. You
Hmm.
know, a cheap one is three million an episode, so it's not a
Yowza.
not a cheap thing to do.
Hmm.
But funny enough, the storyline that they didn't choose, I thought was the best, which is Long Branch. And so, because there was really not a lot of production going on in 22, and then of course next year, 23, there was the writer strike, so there wasn't much going on there. I just thought to myself, gee, I wonder if I could write a novel. So I just started writing it, and I knew the story well. because I had developed it in my mind, at least as a show. So I just started writing it, and I told no one except my wife that I was writing it because I'm a little superstitious in that, when you're writing, it's a very anything. It's a or
Personal.
creating. It's very vulnerable time.
Mm, yeah.
You're trying to do something. You have a passion. You're excited about it, and the last thing you need is somebody coming along going, "That's dumb. Why are you doing that?" So I just told no one. And the other reason was I didn't want to have to go back to everybody I knew in 6 months and go, "Yeah, I changed my mind. I'm not writing a novel now because I found out it's really hard."
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've never done it, but I mean, it's not easy to write.
No, you gotta have. I mean, Joe told me once a very long time ago. He said, "You, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect someone else to believe in you?" So a lot of it is faith. You just kind of feel like, and I guess I could say that over the course of the 22 years at that, or 21 years at that point that I've been working with Joe, I've written a lot of television shows. I've written a lot of stuff for TV. I've produced stuff. We produced a show for Palm Springs Air Museum that won an Emmy. So I had a writing experience to the point where I knew a good story. I knew what was right. I knew that certain things need to happen at certain points to keep the reader engaged. So I guess I had that sort of leg up on it, right?
Hmm.
But it's a very different process, as you can imagine. A screenplay or teleplay, that's a visual medium. I can say he walked into a crappy motel room. Well, I don't have to describe it much more than that because I know the location guy's going to find it, and then the prop guy's going to dress it, and it's going to look like it. Because in that scenario, like all those people that work on a television show, they're all artists too.
Interesting.
That's their art, is dressing up a hotel room to make it look like a rundown room.
Hmm.
But in a novel, I have to describe it. I have to make it so that you get a picture in your mind of what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I found it incredibly liberating because, when you write for television, there's all these filters that you have to run your material through, network people.
Mm,
Well, is it going to be expensive? What is it, a period thing? What locations are you talking about? Who's going to be in it? And
Jesus.
what's your budget? And all those kinds of things. I always tell people that when they ask me about screenwriting, I said never start your screenplay with once they got to the moon because it's never going to get made. It's too expensive, and that's a faraway location. But in a novel, it could be anything you want, and I don't have to answer to anybody but myself. And that I found incredibly liberating and enjoyable.
Now, how long
Wow.
before you let someone read it?
I worked on it for about a year and a half,
Oof.
and then I got and that wasn't full time. I have a day job, so I would work on it when I had time. And the first person I gave it to was my wife, who read it, and of course she liked it because she's biased. So
Mhm.
I gave it to a few friends who also responded like, "Man, this is really great." And then I gave it to Joe, and it was again history repeating itself because I'm handing him this thing. And the funny side note on that is when I had it printed, I mistakenly only had it printed on one side of the paper. So it was like super thick. It looked like War and Peace. And I handed it to him and he looked at me and he goes, "What is that?" I said, "Well, I wrote a book." He goes, "You wrote a book? Oh my God. What?" And he was stammering around. I said, "No, no, it's half as thick as that. See, look, it's only printed on one side." "Oh, okay, okay." So, so he read it and said, "This is really great. You got to get this
Hmm.
published." So that was about all the encouragement that I needed because Joe, the one thing about him is that over the course of the time I've worked for him, I mean, I've written a lot of things and I've failed a lot too.
Yeah.
And he will be the first one to read something and say, "This is not your best. Why don't you give this another shot?" Or what is this?
Good feedback, right? Honest
Yeah,
feedback.
honest feedback. And that's been invaluable.
Now, did you go to the publisher? Is it self-published?
It's self-published, and the reason why is because when I got to that point where everyone said, "No, this is a good book. You should try to get this out there." So I contacted a friend of mine who was a published author, and I said, "I need to find an editor because I need somebody who knows that world of formatting and making it look like a book. So he recommended this woman named Cara Highsmith, and I hired her to be my editor. When she got done with it, she said, "This is really a good book. I read a lot, as you can imagine, and I think you
Mhm.
could get this published." So she said, "I want you to meet this agent that I know. He's for publishing."
Okay.
So I sent him a copy of the book. He read it, and he liked it very much too. And he said, I'm sure I could sell this for you, but you're a first time novelist. It'll take about 2 years for it to get released.
Why?
And
Why? Why would it take 2 years?
because just like the movie business, everything is releases are all staggered. If you're Tom Cruise or Matt Damon or whatever, your movie's going to go out first.
Right.
If you're an unknown somebody that somehow
Dan
managed to
Ram.
get a movie made, it's going to come out last whenever they feel like it.
Hmm.
And he said the other negative part about it is they'll probably take about 80% of your royalties.
Why is that? That's. I
and,
mean.
and because I don't, like I said before, because I have a day job, and this was like a wonder if I could do it kind of thing. I thought he said to me, he goes, "What you should do is publish it yourself, publicize it as much as you can, try to get as many copies sold as you can.
Mhm.
Then if you choose to write a second book, now you at least have a bit of a fan base, and you can go to a publisher and say, look, I did one already. Here's how well it did. Do you want to give me a chance to write one for you and go that route?"
Mm.
So we'll see. I'm actually working on a follow up to this book.
Good.
When you get to the end, you'll know why. But
Okay. Yeah. No, I highly recommend it. I'm halfway through, or actually maybe a little less than halfway. But yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna push that out there for sure. So as a Chiefs fan, I have to bring this
yes,
up. And I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm a Steeler fan.
of
Chiefs play the
course.
Steelers
Yeah,
on Christmas Day.
yeah.
I was trying to think of a wager, not financial, but I couldn't come up with anything quickly. I was like,
Well,
wait a
I'll
minute,
tell you, the Chiefs, I mean, when you look at their schedule and you look at
I
the
don't know,
fact that
3P.
everybody's gunning for them now, they've become the
Oh,
New England Patriots. Everybody
mhm,
loved them in the beginning, and now everybody hates them because they keep
mhm.
winning.
Yeah, I
And
mean
nobody's
that's
ever
like me
done,
with the Steelers. Yeah, in the
yeah,
'70s
nobody's
they were the
ever,
team. Yeah,
exactly. Steelers in the 70s, Denver was that way for a bit in the 90s. So I don't know. I mean, they're just so much fun to watch.
not a great team. Yeah,
You
I
just
mean,
never
how do
know
you
what's.
feel about the Taylor Swift part where they show her all the time? Honestly, how do you feel about that?
I don't mind it so much. I mean, I think
Because you're a fan.
it brings people into the game. I've noticed this season they backed off slightly
Mm,
on her, but I've met, as you saw in the picture, I met Travis once. Joe and I were in
mhm,
Mesa, Arizona at Cubs spring training, and I happened to strike up a conversation with this man who's standing, in the stadium, who was wearing a Kansas City Royals hat. I said, "Oh, where are you from?" He said, I'm from Kansas City." I said, "Yeah, me too." So we started chatting, and then I said, "How about our Chiefs?" Because they had just won the Super Bowl that year, the first of the two they won back to back. And he said, "Yeah, man, they really did well." And then Joe walked up, and I introduced this guy to Joe, and I said, "Yeah, he works." I asked the guy, "Where do you work?" "Arrowhead Stadium." I said, "Oh my God, that's amazing." I said, "Joe, this guy works at Arrowhead." And Joe, being the lifelong Chicago Bear fan, said,
mhm. The
"I'm a
Bears.
Bear fan, but I just love watching the Chiefs. This guy's got me hooked." So the guy looks at us and says, "Well, Travis Kelsey is here. Would you like to meet him?"
Mm.
uh, yes, I would very much so. So he was in a little suite they had there at the stadium, and we went in and said hi. Super nice man. He had just done his little bit on Saturday Night Live right before that,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, just a super. This I don't even know if he was dating Taylor at that point, but he was just a great guy. And I
Big
said,
dude.
"Hey, Travis, you
Mhm.
think you can win one more for us?" He's like, "Why stop now, baby?" And
Yeah,
he won another one. So I like to think I'm his good luck charm.
there you go. He's a big guy. I mean, he's
Yeah, I'm 6'2", and he
mm,
was taller than me.
yeah,
So
yeah, big dude. Have you ever met anyone? Um, what's the word? Like unexpectedly, that you were just like, wow, you were a fan.
yes.
Not sports, but just in general, just whatever celebrity. I guess is the best way to put it.
Hmm.
And just unexpectedly, we're like, oh, wow,
Yeah, I
that
have
was
a great
cool, super cool.
I have a great story. So there's a comedian named Tom Dreesen.
Oh yeah, I
Been
know Tom.
around for
I
a
mean, I
long
don't
time.
know him, but yeah,
Yeah, he
funny guy.
opened up for Frank Sinatra for like 13 years. So
A rat
Tom is
pack.
a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
And I was at a function. I don't even remember what the function was, but it was a mixture of people in the business and not kind of thing. It might have
Mm,
been a veterans thing. And it was a big banquet hall. There was maybe 400 people there. And I'm sitting at my table and I look across the room and I see Tommy walking across the room. And oh my God, it's Tommy. I hadn't seen him in a while. I get up, I walk over there and I stop him. Now he's with someone else, but my focus is on Tom. I
right.
said, Tommy, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. I'm going through this whole thing like, hey, what have you been up to? Da, 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 da. He's looking at me, but he's got this kind of half grin on his face, like, like, and I'm like, what's going on? So I stopped talking. He goes, Danny, I'd like you to meet my friend Clint Eastwood.
No shit.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I look and it's Clint Eastwood. Now he's looking at
Cool.
me and he's got a grin on his face because he knows that he just shocked the crap out of me. Hi, how are you? I said, oh, I'm a big fan, Mr. Eastwood.
I'll blow your head clean off.
Exactly. So that was very cool and also a big shock to run into him.
Now, how long ago was this? I mean, was he
Oh, this was probably 10 years ago, maybe
okay?
more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he's still grinding out movies. I
he
mean,
is.
it's
It's like,
unbelievable,
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
Well, look, before I wrap this up, I have a segment. I want to just get some ideas, some
Okay.
preferences that I run by people at the end. It's a simple, fun thing called this or that.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Rapid fire. Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Joe's not going to like that. You got to go pasta. I'm Italian too. Come on. Anyway, all right. Writing a book or writing a screenplay?
I would say a book.
Okay, cool. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Oh, it's a wino. All right.
I'm
Oh, all right. Zoo or aquarium?
aquarium. It's air conditioned.
That LA heat's killing you.
Yeah.
Grilled cheese or BLT?
BLT. Love a good BLT.
Hmm. Scary movie or comedy?
Comedy.
You have a favorite comedy? Just, I mean, off the top of your head?
Oh, I mean, let's see.
I mean, there's a lot of them, but
Yeah, I like those old, like Night Shift with Michael Keaton and Henry Winkler. That's a great old comedy.
ever meet any comedian? I mean, I'm sure you have, but I mean,
I've met
pop up.
Henry.
Nice
Henry
guy. When
Winkler.
I
Yeah,
had someone else on, Mark Travis, who was went to school with him or something. But anyway, everyone said, "Oh, nice guy." Yeah.
yeah, he's super nice guy. Comics I've met. Yeah, I've met Sebastian Maniscalco.
That guy, so funny.
Steve Trevino is another very funny comic, and Tammy Pascatelli, who's a dear friend of mine.
Sweet.
She's a wonderful stand-up comic, and then Tom Dreesen, of course.
Of course. Where are we? A couple more. Fiction or nonfiction? And I'm talking books or movie, just in general.
Oh boy, that's tough. I guess I'm going to say nonfiction. I like history.
Driver or passenger?
Driver.
Art museum or history museum?
History museum.
All right, last one. Goodfellas or The Godfather?
That's not even fair.
Come on, you got to answer.
It's not.
Come
even,
on.
It has to be Godfather, just because it came first.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of money in that white powder.
What a trilogy of films,
Oh my God. Just, yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, that's great. I mean, I love Goodfellas too. Every guy in that movie,
Yeah.
I felt like I knew from my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Not my friends, but my father's friends.
I'll tell you, Goodfellas and Casino are right there for me. Like they're right, almost equal.
You have a favorite gangster movie? I mean, I guess for me, it's Godfather, but I mean,
Yeah.
outside of Goodfellas?
Outside of Godfather, it would be Casino. I thought Casino was fabulous.
Yeah, I agree. But look, this has been great. I'm gonna get the book. I'm gonna finish the book.
Yeah.
I'm curious now because you threw a couple seeds in there.
Yeah.
So
And I'd love to hear what you think about it.
Oh, you will. Trust me, and you're gonna hear about the game on Christmas Day. I'm gonna come up with some kind of wager that's
Hey,
not,
it's parody in the NFL. It can be anybody's weekend.
I think they can. I mean, I think they can repeat or three-peat, I should say.
Yeah, if anybody can, but I mean, when you look at the first three games of this season, they have won in the last seconds by either luck or a no
Yeah.
call, or it's like, man,
Oh,
oh man,
there was somebody. No,
yeah.
there's some
I mean, I'll
brutal
be
no calls.
honest, it should have been pass interference. That call should have been
Yeah,
called.
yeah. But we shall see
Yeah,
Christmas Day.
yes, we should. Yes. Who will
uh,
get the coal and who will get the gift?
that's
You
right.
or me? Yeah.
Yeah, I got to come up with something now. I think about that. All right. But no, I really appreciate you coming on, Dan. It's
Thank you.
been great.
It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself.